The dealership smelled like lies and cheap cologne. Marcus Kane, CEO of Kane Enterprises, stood in the showroom, his tailored suit a silent scream of success. Yet the salesman eyeing him saw only the color of his skin. Marcus had built his empire from nothing, clawing his way up from a one-room apartment in Detroit to a corner office overlooking Manhattan. At 42, he was a titan in the automotive industry, his company supplying parts to half the cars gleaming on the lot before him. Today, he wasn't Marcus Kane, billionaire. He was just Marcus, a black man in jeans and a hoodie, testing the waters of a dealership his company was considering acquiring. The plan was simple. Walk in, pose as a customer, and see how they treated him. He didn't expect the sting to cut so deep. The salesman, a wiry guy named Chad with a smirk that begged to be slapped, sauntered over. "Hey, buddy, you sure you're in the right place?" His tone dripped with condescension, eyes flicking to Marcus's casual attire. "We got some used models out back if that's more your speed." Marcus's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice steady. "I'm here for the new X-Series sedan. Fully loaded. Can you show me one?" Chad chuckled, glancing at his colleague, a woman named Lisa who hovered near the coffee machine. "Fully loaded, huh? Those start at 80 grand. You got that kind of cash? Or you just window shopping?" The air thickened. Marcus felt the familiar burn of being sized up, reduced to a stereotype. He'd faced it before, store clerks trailing him, security guards eyeing his every move, but each time, it was a fresh wound. "I'm serious," he said, his voice low, controlled. "Show me the car." Chad shrugged, leading Marcus to a glossy black sedan. "This one's top of the line. Leather seats, V8 engine, the works. But financing's tough on these. You got a job?" The question landed like a jab, and Lisa stifled a laugh from across the room. Marcus's fingers twitched, itching to pull out his platinum Amex and shove it in Chad's face. Instead, he played along. "Yeah, I work. Let's talk numbers." Chad leaned against the car, arms crossed. "Look, man, I'm trying to save you time. These cars are for serious buyers. Why don't you check out the compacts? Easier on the wallet." His eyes narrowed, a glint of prejudice shining through. "We don't do charity cases here." The words hit like a sledgehammer. Marcus's pulse raced, but he kept his cool, years of boardroom battles teaching him to mask his fury. "I want this one," he said, pointing at the sedan. "Run the numbers." Chad sighed, rolling his eyes. "All right, fine. Let's see your credit score. Got ID?" He extended a hand, as if expecting Marcus to fumble. Marcus handed over a driver's license reel, but under a pseudonym he used for these tests. Chad glanced at it, then snorted. "Marcus Jones? Yeah, okay. Let's see if you qualify for anything." He sauntered to his desk, muttering something about wasting time. Lisa approached, her smile plastic. "You know, we have a great lease program for certain customers. Low monthly payments." Her tone implied Marcus couldn't afford more. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Marcus's mind raced back to his childhood, to the times his father was turned away from jobs, apartments, life because of his skin. He'd promised himself he'd never let that poison touch him again. Yet here it was, alive and smirking in a suburban dealership. "I don't need a lease," Marcus said, his voice sharp enough to cut glass. "I'm paying cash, full price, today." Chad froze, his pen hovering over the paperwork. Lisa's smile faltered. A third salesman, an older man named Greg, looked up from his desk, sensing the shift. "Cash?" Chad repeated, his bravado cracking. "You're telling me you've got 80 grand sitting around?" "More than that," Marcus said, stepping closer. "But I'm starting to think you don't want my money." Chad laughed, a nervous edge to it. Look, no offense, but we get all types in here. Gotta be careful. You understand. His eyes flicked to Marcus's hoodie, as if it explained everything. Marcus's patience snapped. What I understand, he said, his voice rising, is that you've been judging me since I walked in. You think I can't afford this car because of how I look. Say it. The showroom went silent. Customers browsing nearby paused, heads turning. Greg stood, his face pale. Lisa took a step back, her hands fidgeting. Chad's smirk vanished. I didn't say that, he stammered. I'm just doing my job. Your job? Marcus's voice boomed, years of suppressed rage spilling out. Your job is to sell cars, not to decide who's worthy based on skin color. You think you know me? You don't know a damn thing. Chad's face reddened. Hey, calm down, man. No need to make a scene. A scene? Marcus stepped forward, towering over Chad. You've been disrespecting me since I walked in. You want a scene? I'll give you one. He pulled out his phone, dialing his assistant. Sarah, I'm at the dealership. Send the team. Now. Chad's eyes widened. Team? What's that supposed to mean? Marcus ignored him, turning to the other customers, who were now openly staring. Anyone else here been treated like they don't belong? He asked, his voice carrying. A woman in her 60s, holding a brochure, raised her hand hesitantly. They told me I didn't look like a sports car type, she said, her voice shaking. Marcus nodded, his anger now a focused flame. This ends today. Minutes later, the dealership doors swung open, and 3 sharply dressed men and women entered Marcus's legal team, followed by his CFO, Elena Martinez. Chad's jaw dropped as Elena approached, her presence commanding. Mr. Kane, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. We've got the acquisition papers ready. This dealership's under review, effective immediately. The room froze. Chad's face drained of color. Mr. Kane, he whispered. As in Kane Enterprises? Marcus's smile was cold. That's right. I own the company that supplies your inventory. And I just saw exactly how you treat customers you don't think fit. Lisa stammered. We didn't know. You shouldn't have to know, Marcus snapped. You should treat every person who walks in here with respect. But you didn't. And now you're done. Greg, the older salesman, stepped forward, his hands raised. Mr. Kane, I swear, I didn't. Save it, Marcus said. I've seen enough. He turned to Elena. Start the audit. Every transaction, every customer complaint. I want names, dates, everything. The customers in the showroom began murmuring, some pulling out phones to record. The woman who'd spoken earlier approached Marcus, her eyes grateful. Thank you, she whispered. I've never seen anyone stand up like that. Marcus nodded, his anger softening for a moment. No one should feel small in a place like this. As his team began pulling files from the manager's office, Chad slumped into a chair, his career crumbling before his eyes. Lisa stood frozen, tears welling. Greg tried to argue, but Elena's sharp voice cut him off. You'll be hearing from our lawyers, she said. Marcus took one last look at the sedan, its sleek lines mocking the ugliness he'd just endured. He'd come here to buy a car, but he'd exposed something far uglier, a system that judged before it listened. He walked out, the weight of the moment heavy but righteous. Outside, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the lot. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Media's on their way. You sure about this? He typed back. Let them come. It's time to clean house. The next morning, the story broke. Headlines screamed, Undercover CEO exposes racism at dealership. Social media erupted, with customers sharing their own stories of mistreatment. The dealership's parent company issued a frantic apology, but it was too late. Marcus's audit uncovered a pattern of discriminatory practices stretching back years. By week's end, Chad, Lisa, and Greg were fired, along with the manager who'd enabled them. The dealership itself was shuttered, its assets absorbed by Kane Enterprises under a new, inclusive management team. Marcus didn't stop there. He launched a nationwide initiative, training dealerships on fair treatment and accountability. He spoke at conferences, sharing his story, not as a victim, but as a man who turned pain into power. Respect isn't earned by a suit or a title, he told a packed auditorium. It's owed to every person who walks through your door. The woman from the dealership, Mrs. Evelyn Carter, became an advocate alongside him. Together, they built a scholarship fund for minority youth pursuing careers in the automotive industry. At its launch, Evelyn hugged Marcus, her voice thick with emotion. "You didn't just change that day," she said. "You changed lives." Marcus looked out at the crowd, his heart full. He'd walked into that dealership to test a system. He'd left having dismantled it. And in its place, he'd built something better, a legacy of justice, one car lot at a time. The fallout from the dealership incident spread like wildfire. By noon the next day, Marcus Kane's name was trending across platforms, his face plastered on news sites and X-posts. Clips of his confrontation, recorded by a customer's shaky phone, racked up millions of views. Comment sections buzzed with outrage, support, and the occasional skeptic claiming he'd staged it for clout. Marcus didn't care about the noise. He cared about the signal, the stories pouring in from others who'd been dismissed, belittled, or outright ignored because of their race, gender, or class. Each email, each DM was a knife twist, reminding him why he'd walked into that dealership in the first place. Back at Kane Enterprises, the boardroom was a war zone of strategy and ethics. Elena Martinez, Marcus's CFO and closest confidant, paced the room, her tablet glowing with data. "We've got over 200 customer complaints from that dealership alone," she said, her voice sharp. "Most mention race or income profiling. Some go back a decade. How did this place stay open?" Marcus leaned back in his chair, staring out at the Manhattan skyline. "Because no one looked. Or they looked and didn't care." He'd seen it before, systems built on apathy, where profit trumped principle. His company supplied parts to hundreds of dealerships, but he'd never dug into their day-to-day operations. That ended now. Elena slid a report across the table. "The parent company's stock is tanking. They're begging for a meeting. What's your play?" Marcus tapped his pen against the desk, his mind replaying Chad's smirk, Lisa's fake smile, Greg's weak excuses. "We buy them out," he said. "Full acquisition. Then we gut their culture. New training, new staff, new rules. No one gets a pass for prejudice." Elena raised an eyebrow. "That's a $50 million move, Marcus. You sure you want to sink that kind of capital into a PR stunt?" "This isn't PR," he snapped, his voice low but fierce. "This is personal. I built this company to prove we could rise above the garbage thrown at us. I'm not letting some small-minded sales team drag us back down." Elena nodded, a rare smile breaking through. "All right, boss. Let's make them sweat." The acquisition moved fast. By the end of the week, Kane Enterprises owned the dealership chain, and Marcus's team was in overdrive. They hired diversity consultants, rewrote employee handbooks, and rolled out mandatory bias training. Marcus insisted on community input, hosting town halls where locals, especially those who'd been mistreated, could voice their experiences. One night, at a packed community center, a young black mechanic named Jamal stood up. "I applied at that dealership 3 years ago," he said, his voice steady but raw. They told me I didn't fit the vibe. I was overqualified, but they hired a white kid with half my certifications. Marcus felt his chest tighten. You're hired, he said on the spot, and you're training the next wave of mechanics for us. The room erupted in applause, but Marcus wasn't done. He announced a partnership with local trade schools, offering internships to underrepresented groups. Talent doesn't have a color, he said, and I'm done letting anyone think it does. The media frenzy grew. Some outlets painted Marcus as a hero, others as a vigilante overstepping his power. A conservative pundit on X called him a race-baiting opportunist, while supporters flooded the platform with hashtags like "Justice at the Dealership." Marcus stayed off social media, letting the work speak. But the backlash wasn't just online. The former dealership manager, a slick-talking guy named Roger, sued for wrongful termination, claiming Marcus had entrapped the staff. The lawsuit was a long shot, but it dragged Marcus's name through the mud, with tabloids digging into his past, painting him as an angry black man with a vendetta. One night, over whiskey at his penthouse, Marcus confided in Elena. "They're trying to make me the villain," he said, staring at the city lights. "Maybe I pushed too hard." Elena set her glass down, her eyes fierce. "You pushed because they deserved it. You think Chad or Roger would have lost sleep over you. They didn't. You exposed a truth they wanted buried. Don't apologize for that." Marcus nodded, her words grounding him. He'd faced worse bankers who'd laughed at his startup pitch, competitors who'd tried to sabotage him. He'd outlasted them all. But this fight felt different. It wasn't just about him. It was about Evelyn Carter, the woman from the dealership who'd thanked him. It was about Jamal, who'd been denied a shot. It was about every person who'd walked into a place expecting respect and left with shame. The lawsuit dragged on, but Marcus's team was relentless. They unearthed emails from Roger instructing staff to prioritize high-value clients and screen out risky buyers, code for racial profiling. The evidence was damning, and the case collapsed. Roger's reputation was toast, and the remaining sales team scattered, their careers in ruins. Marcus didn't celebrate. Justice wasn't about gloating. It was about rebuilding. 6 months later, the dealership reopened under Kane Enterprises' banner. Marcus stood at the ribbon cutting, Evelyn Carter at his side. The lot gleamed with new cars, but the real change was inside. A diverse staff, trained to treat every customer like they mattered. Jamal, now a lead mechanic, gave Marcus a nod from the service bay. Evelyn, who'd become a close friend, squeezed his arm. "You did this," she said. "You made them see us." Marcus shook his head. "We did this. You spoke up. That took guts." The crowd cheered as Marcus cut the ribbon, but his mind was elsewhere. He thought of his father, who died before seeing Marcus's success. He thought of the kid he'd been, watching his dad swallow insults to keep food on the table. This wasn't just a dealership. It was a promise kept. 1 year later, Marcus stood on a stage at an industry conference, facing a sea of executives. "We've got a choice," he said, his voice steady but passionate. "We can build systems that lift everyone or ones that crush the wrong people. I've seen both. I felt both. And I'm here to tell you fairness isn't a buzzword. It's a fight, and it starts with us." The room stood, applauding, but Marcus's eyes were on a group of young interns in the front row, black, Latino, Asian, white, all watching him with hope. He'd given them a shot just like he'd always wanted. That was enough. Back at his office, Marcus kept a small wooden plaque on his desk, a gift from Evelyn. It read, in her careful handwriting, "Truth exposes, respect builds." It was the same message that had hung on that clipboard in the dealership, now a reminder of the day he'd turned pain into purpose. The world wasn't fixed. Prejudice still lurked in dealerships, boardrooms, everywhere. But Marcus had carved out a corner where respect ruled. And he'd keep carving, one fight at a time. What do you think? Where do we draw the line between justice and revenge? How do we heal divides when trust is broken?